All right, welcome everyone to the Gamers podcast. We are Gamers. With me, your host Justin Jones. We have Lawrence,
Hey everybody, what's going on?
and we also have Rident with us today.
Hey.
And we also have a special guest here with us. I'm going to let Lawrence introduce him, tell you a little bit about who we have with us today.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen listening to our podcast, it is our great pleasure to introduce to you a voice actor in both gaming and anime. He has voiced several roles including Sosuke Aizen in Bleach, Kiba Inuzuka in Naruto, and even has voiced characters as far back as Gohan in Dragon Ball Z. For some of us, he can be considered the narrator of our childhood, so please welcome Kyle Hebert.
Thank you very much.
What's that?
Oh, that takes me back.
Next time on Dragon Ball Z.
How are you doing today,
man.
sir?
I am doing good. Just waking up here, and being such a rock star, getting up at the crack of noon like this. But,
Yeah, that's
fight
my
the good fight.
Saturdays.
Like a boss.
Like a boss.
That's right. Yeah, the world of a freelance voice actor is if you ain't working, then you're probably auditioning. So I wake up and take a look at my phone, and it goes, "Oh, you have an audition due." I'm like, "Oh, okay." I'm like, I gotta crank this out before I have your podcast to do. So it's actually up for a little bit, firing up the little home recording setup, which is pretty basic. Like, launch the record program and record, boom, and then send that in, and then here we are.
All right, that's pretty cool. I guess you saying that just spawned a quick question in my head. What really goes into when you're setting up your own auditions from your own home or from your own setup? What do you put into your audition tapes?
Well, technically, we've gotten to the point where you don't need to spend thousands of dollars on a home studio, but it is important to keep in mind you need kind of a quiet environment. And you don't necessarily have to soundproof anything. A lot of people just tend to record in their closet because, boxes and clothes can deaden the sound of a room perfectly. And recording in a car is also a viable alternative if you have a mobile setup, some sort of portable mic, like a USB mic and, a tablet or a smartphone even. I'm able to plug in directly into my iPhone, and I can waveform edit and everything directly on that if I need to. But usually I sit at my desktop here in my dining room area, and unless I have to shout, the room sounds fairly dead, and it's a good quiet environment. Unless there's a leaf blower outside or kids playing something, then you gotta just kind of weather the storm. But it's kind of expected for today's generation of voice actors to know some basic home editing, basic home recording setup, and it is a lot more convenient too. A lot of us go in physically to a studio and be directed during an audition, but if you have an agent, for example, or you've worked for several different studios who know your work and trust you and everything, and you've got the setup, then they're just going to send you these scripts to just record from home. And, you just do a quick take. Sometimes they want more than one, but typically they want one take, and you just edit it down to an MP3, send it in. Start off with a slate, which is just your full name and the character you're reading for, then kind of launch into it. And send it off, and then you kind of move on to the next thing in your day. You don't sit there and twiddle your thumbs going, "Oh, I hope I get it. I hope I get it." Because chances are you're not. It's a very competitive field. Not as competitive as on camera because you're not biased by how you look, but,
Right.
there's people all reading for these jobs that are, as experienced or in many times way more experienced than you are. So you got to bring your A game regardless.
Right, that's
I guess
understandable.
you don't have to look like the character or anything like that to represent them either. So
I so do not look like Teen Gohan at all. But okay, I love the fact that You know, it doesn't matter what you look like. You could go in your PJs if you wanted to. I wouldn't suggest it, but you could.
As long as you got the role, you got the role, basically.
Do you have any?
Well, not necessarily the case. You could record for something, and then the product comes out, and then your voice isn't on it. So, you know, sometimes things happen, and you get replaced. And, you know, maybe the director or the client decide at some point down the road that maybe we want to redo this. I mean, as long as you still get paid, I guess in the end, that's what matters. But for me, it's just doing something that I love. I really love getting to play in the booth. To me, it's not like a job. I get to craft a performance in this small little bubble and put it out there into the world, and hopefully it sticks.
Okay.
Do you have any other favorite voice artists that you sort of quite admire with what they do?
Yeah. Well, it all started with Mel Blanc, you know, the master that's no longer with us, but brought us Looney Tunes. And I was probably 8 years old, and my dad told me about it, and that just fascinated me because doing voices came easy, but I learned growing up that, you know, being a voice actor is not about doing voices. You know, almost anybody can just do a voice, but, you know, can you sustain a performance? Can you actually build something from the ground up and you know, be directed and be moldable to what the director needs, and basically build a character based on little to no information. You know, it's like, okay, you look at an audition side for a project, like say for a video game, and if I see a picture of Sima Yi from Dynasty Warriors, I see the picture, I see the description of the Dynasty Warrior character, how he fits into the whole plot line, and then the breakdown, and then I'll have like 5 or 6 lines of dialogue that sample different emotional beats. You know, anger, you know, calm, victory, maybe some battle chants or battle fight efforts, you know, attack, damage, death screams. And then that's basically it. And once you nail the gig, you get to see the whole script, and even then the whole context isn't necessarily there for you because your script is broken down into just your lines. You could be calling out to other characters, or you could be responding to other characters. So you're not really sure. You have to record just line by line, and the client, the director, you know, work together to say, okay, well, what is this line in response to? And we got to make sure that performance plays correctly.
Do you ever have times where you're recording with the other person you're talking to in terms of the script? Like, let's say if you're recording for Dynasty Warriors, you have Sima Yi and Zhuge Liang who have their back and forth exchanges within, you know, the story mode, or Sima Yi and Guo Jia. Are you ever within the same booth or within the same, you know, section of recording as the other voice actor?
No, because a video game could be recorded in as little as a day if it's like a mobile game with just a handful of characters, but something as expansive as Dynasty Warriors takes weeks or even months to characters, or the actors rather. In the video game setup for a session is one actor at a time. So I mean, whoever I'm talking to in those scenes may have been recorded, they may have not been recorded, but the one thing we do have in 100% completion to use as reference is the Japanese audio. So we can listen to that to know how big or soft we need to make the performance to match it. And then, of course, the client's there who understands the game inside and out to say, okay, this is in response to this line. But again, it's broken down. You know, you could see instead of cut scenes, the animation may not be done yet. So I may have little to no cutscene work, but I'm just literally recording audio and matching the timing of the Japanese audio, because that the game footage is being animated to Japanese audio. So I can't take 10 seconds in English, say something that takes 5 seconds in Japanese. I have to honor whatever the length of that clip is.
Right.
I kind of piece it together, little jigsaw puzzle over the course of weeks or even months. And then sometimes the scripts get altered and I have to come back in what's called a pickup session. We pick up where we left off, or we re-record something for a technical reason or performance issues, and hey, more money, right?
What about in anime? Do you when you've done anime and animated series, whatever, do you kind of feed off other actors when you're doing that, or is it kind of the same thing as again?
Same thing. You're using the basis of the Japanese performance. The difference is you have the visuals. The final product is on the screen, and that's a nice advantage. That's nice to see. But you do record by yourself again because of it's just a time and money thing, really. When you have an actor there trying to match lip sync and they're scene line by line, it's not really a good use of your budget to hire, your whole cast to sit there waiting in the lobby while one guy is getting the
yeah.
So, it's a little bit of a lonely thing, but you get used to it. And if you get to work in domestic animation, a cartoon, Family Guy, Futurama, something like that. I got to work on the Avengers cartoon on Disney XD, recorded a couple years ago, and it just aired a few weeks ago. It takes forever for this stuff to get done.
It's all recorded that far in advance, and then it's like, now we'll release it.
Well, I mean, they got to animate the whole thing from scratch.
Right.
And the big perk to that is, even though you don't have a visual reference, I had no idea what Super Skrull looked like. I knew who he was because, of being a comic book fan. It's like, oh yeah, the Skrulls, the Skrulls in the Marvel universe. Okay, I got that. But they just kind of said, oh, he's sort of like a Hulk, and he's big, and he's a bad guy. It's like, all right, that's basically what they said.
So very limited.
Yeah.
That's you get to do it like a radio play. It's so fun. You don't do it from start to finish, but you break it down like one scene at a time or a page or two at a time, and each line is numbered. So it's like, let's do lines 1 through 25. So all the actors in that scene will stand up to the mic. Every actor has their own mic, their own music stand, and the script on there. Although today, a lot of us bring our tablets or iPads and read the script off that. And record the scene a couple times, record some fight sounds. Sometimes we save the fight stuff for the end if it's really shouty, screamy.
Right.
But if it's just battle interspersed within the episode, then we record it then.
Okay.
Well, another question that I had in terms of recording, you say you create things in a bubble. Do they ever give you the entirety of what a character is? They give you their entire backstory, what's going to happen to the character, or do you only get it piecemeal by what you're recording?
Right. I get it piecemeal, or in the case of a game, they're going to tell me my whole story arc. It's like, okay, you start here and you end here. And usually the ending is death. But I die for a living. I like to tell people that. I have way more characters die than end up on a resume, but that's okay.
Sounds like Boromir, Sean Bean. He dies every single time.
Made a career of dying.
Sean Bean's in a movie. He's going to die by the end.
Yeah.
Pretty much, right?
Yeah. Okay. You've mentioned about how you compare voice acting to radio play, and you mentioned at some point in the past that you got your start from doing, Radio Disney as a DJ for Radio Disney back in 97, 98. Is there any sort of experience that you take from the Radio Disney work going up to your voice acting and your first major role as the narrator for DBZ, and then taking it from there?
I think it helped build me confidence. I was actually a pretty shy kid. I didn't really do any plays or anything, and I always had trouble memorizing dialogue. And the similarity with radio and voice work is your script and what you need to say is right in front of you at all times. So it kind of helped me get used to performance anxiety and just kind of getting over that, because I used to do that as a kid around the house. I'd take a cassette player or a turntable and pretend to be a DJ, or I'd make, fake commercials and do all that. And I ended up getting a college degree in radio, TV, film, and which spiraled into a radio career for about 13 years, and working in various formats, from heavy metal to top 40 to jazz to kids radio, and I was there the longest when I happened to hear about auditions back in 2000. Yeah, God, 12 years ago.
Wow.
This August, yeah, 12 years ago, I got the call that I got. Well, I went in, and then 2 weeks later, I got the call and started working on DBZ. It's like, wow, this doesn't suck. I get to be on a show that I was actually a fan of from 5 years previously on Dragon. But yeah, anyway.
Well, see, we've in the UK here, we've only just had our releases of the Dragon Ball Z box sets. I mean, I saw caught one of your videos earlier, which I was just randomly scrolling through, and I saw you where you posted a video back in January about it got cancellation over your way, but we've only just got it come over our way with the DVDs,
Right.
Because we had all sorts of licensing issues and everything else. And obviously you made a big point about things like piracy and everything else, kind of killing off what was essentially the profits and everything else from the shows. I guess that's kind of something which you have a strong stance against.
Yeah. I anime pay, as far as the actors are concerned, is minimal. It's abysmally low. But I know it's important to the fans that enjoy English dubs. They don't want to see that dry up. If fewer and fewer shows are getting licensed because there's no money coming back in to support the system, then there's no budget to craft a dub, and that's expensive. Not just hiring actors, but hiring the studio and the mixers and the directors, the writers, the translators. All that stuff has to be considered when doing that. It's all business. Anime is a great art form, but in the end, it is a business, and it needs money to sustain itself. And if you're going to invest millions of dollars in crafting a product and put it out there, and the second it broadcasts and suddenly it's dispersed on BitTorrent, you can imagine the frustration as the creator of that content, that it's like, well, wait, if everyone got it for free, they're not motivated to go spend money on it now.
No.
Right.
Hence the endless vicious cycle of and not a lot of people are entitled douche canoes about it, saying like, oh yeah, it's online, therefore I have a right to it or anything. But the fans want the content, and Japan and working with the American studios have to work together to kind of recraft a new business model. Digital distribution, on demand, things that are cheaper in box set form, quicker. You got to release stuff faster and faster. You're never going to get rid of piracy, but maybe you can nip it in the bud somehow if you get that official content out there faster to the fans.
I guess it's made easier with the fact that everything's all now digital, so you have access to just download, legally download video and things like that.
Yeah, it's actually a really, really great time to be a fan, assuming that you're not trying to get some obscure show that would never get licensed here.
Yeah.
Or some retro show, something from the 70s that you may be a huge fan of, but there's really not a market for in today's world, And if your average fan at an anime convention is a 14-year-old girl, then I don't think Star Blazers or
Gotcha Force
that stuff is going to sell like Astro Boy,
Yeah. I mean, I tried watching Visionaries not so long ago, and I struggled with watching. I used to love the show, but I struggled with watching that in recent times. So, and I guess, like you said, it's not you're not appealing to today's audience, are you?
Yeah, and there has to be some sort of marketability to it. The studio has to say, all this money, are people going to buy this title? Enough of them to matter.
Right.
I guess you get a lot of people who are, I like it, my 10 friends like it, but that's 11 people out of, the huge numbers that would probably have to sell.
Yeah. Anime fandom, as big as it seems, is a small niche compared to the amount of people that go see Batman, for example. So
absolutely. One thing I will say to your point of marketability is when Toonami did the teaser way back on April Fool's Day, when they did that whole retro comeback. I watched everything from 12 a.m. all the way through to when they stopped at 6.
Mhm.
But I will also say that Astro Boy and Gigantor weren't as appealing as I remember they used to be.
Yeah.
And I wound up just watching it because of the nostalgia, and it was, this is back again for at least one day.
Yeah.
And then it spawned into the Toonami of now, which is Saturdays at midnight. But people also seem to want to gravitate toward part of the retro, and they're not that accepting of the new shows like Dead Man Wonderland and Cashin Sins.
And, in order for Toonami to grow and evolve, and, they put it out there, and folks like Steve Bloom, the voice of Tom, the robot, are out there on the Twitterverse saying, hey, guys, we have to have ratings. You guys, thanks to social media, especially on Twitter, they were able to say, hey, Cartoon Network, we really want this. Don't let it be a one-off April Fool's joke. We really want it back. And so they brought it back. And they're saying, this was a really hard thing to accomplish. And guys, if you want to see different shows on here, we need to demonstrate to the bean counters that, there's an audience for this. So you can't be too picky choosy saying, well, I'm not going to watch Toonami. I want it back,
Exactly.
but they don't show any good shows. It's like, well, if no one's going to watch the shows on Toonami, then it's just going to go away again.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right. And that attitude is, it's really a shame to hear that, because they have great stuff out there now. And as much as we like the old stuff, what made Toonami great was it introduced new things to a new audience. So I guess that's why I'm okay with Toonami showing Dead Man Wonderland and Casher and Sins, because it's introducing new stuff to new people. That's what got me into anime. Just coming home randomly one day, seeing Toonami and seeing Dragon Ball Z for the first time. The first.
Right, yeah. Even though things get edited and watered down, it never bothered me that much, because I understand broadcast standards and practices. In North America, the government steps in and says, okay, you can't just show, these characters smoking a cigarette or just blowing people away with weapons and everything. You have to think about your audience and blah, blah, blah. And so Japan's like, well, we want to reach as wide an audience as possible. So you ended up with extremely watered down shows from 4Kids through the years and everything. But Japan was fine with that, because at least they got their shows on broadcast television in the United States. Right. That was the compromise you have to make. And, fortunately, as time goes on, there's been more and more shows that, while they have, have extremely watered down, some fans might even say unwatchable versions on TV, at least it got the message out there that, hey, look, guys, this cool show exists in uncut form. You save your money and purchase it, then you can have all the blood, guts, and this, that, and the other. And
But that brings up an interesting point in terms of an edited and an unedited broadcast, especially if it comes down to an anime that went through two different studios, like, for example, One Piece. Yeah. One Piece was introduced as a 4Kids product on Channel 11 and Channel 30 on Cartoon Network as, 4Kids. And then during the tail end of the previous, incarnation of Toonami on Saturdays, Funimation got the dubbing rights, and then they redubbed it, and then they made it truer to form. They got rid of this, you could say, the more silly edits, but people were still turned off by the 4Kids treatment of an anime like One Piece, that only a few gave this Funimation version a chance. Do you think that that type of division causes a rift in terms of, sales potential and what this anime can do in the US?
Well, I think with One Piece, it was a matter of the hardcore fans had already seen the material that they wanted, dub or not, and they still do. They religiously watch every new episode every week or whatever. And we had this case where Yu-Gi-Oh was even put out. A couple volumes of uncut Yu-Gi-Oh came out, and the sales tanked. It's like a little too late. Maybe if the uncut version were available from the get-go, maybe things might be different. But again, to get something on broadcast TV, it has to be censored, unfortunately. But I look at it as a big commercial. You see something on TV and it's like, oh, hey, this looks cool. And to the hardcore fans, they know that something's missing, or maybe you can tell something got edited out, or maybe you can't. Who knows? But if you're checking it out on TV, at least it's legit. It got licensed, and the original content holders got paid for that content, unlike the torrent system, where you can argue that yes, you're spreading the word to a fan base by circulating torrent files and fan subs, and to a degree that's true, but again, there's no money coming back, and that's just
it's
where we are today. And
it's like going back to your Batman example. If, let's say, Batman Begins had leaked and it had been spread through torrent, everyone already had a copy of it, the sales of it in the theater probably wouldn't have done as well because everyone would have already had a copy. So you wouldn't have got Dark Knight Rises because everyone already saw Begins, and they didn't put in to getting a better product.
Well, it's also different with a live action movie because, that's a big screen experience. Remember Wolverine Origins? Terrible movie, but a DVD quality copy was released on torrent a month before theatrical release, and it actually still ended up doing really well. Because I think people did want to still go see it on the big screen and enjoy,
Those poor souls.
No, hold on.
Or,
I will argue the first 15 minutes of it, before Ryan Reynolds gets his mouth sewn shut, are pretty watchable.
Sure. Yeah, exactly.
15 minutes. Now what about the other hour?
You know
45?
what? That's when you just change the channel.
Pretty much.
One question that I had, going back to the discussion of piracy and talking about official sources and torrent sites, as it relates to YouTube, some anime publishing companies have official YouTube channels and post anime up on YouTube. Like Fairy Tail is up on Funimation's channel, the subtitled version. Manga Entertainment has Monster in its entirety after it aired on Sci-Fi. But other YouTube channels like to post these anime episodes up on their accounts as well. Is there a discernible difference for you between the official channel doing it and a random, let's just say Joe Schmo on YouTube decides to put the entirety of Monster up on his account while Manga Entertainment has it up on their account? Is there a difference between the two?
Well, yeah. I guess the ripped version, as it were, probably won't have streaming ads in it. And that's the compromise fans have to make, is if you want to watch something for free on YouTube, then you're going to get an ad, and maybe sometimes you can skip it, but generally it's kind of embedded in there and you can't. But commercials are a necessary evil that the companies pay money to have those mentions, and if you're not going to pay for it, someone has to.
Right.
Someone has to pay for that bandwidth, and someone has to pay for the licensing of the show. So I think that's a fair thing. Have streaming, have the ads and all that. Once it gets disseminated, YouTube is a big bastion of copyright hell. Because technically, it seems like 98% of what's on YouTube is pirated. People lifting commercials and entire shows or segments of shows, but it's an invaluable source too. Not only is it entertainment, but it ends up being research for a lot of us. If I have to do if something on my audition for a character says, we want it to sound like this, and then they give me a YouTube link as a reference because they say, well, what does this character sound like? I've never heard of this person. And then YouTube, it can be fantastic source to study things like dialect or a certain actor's performance. And you go, oh, that's the sound they want, and this, that, and the other. But I don't know if there's a system that YouTube could come up with saying, if there should be some sort of flag or some sort of disclaimer showing like this content is not available officially, you're watching an unlicensed version of it, or I don't know.
I know some people do that off their own backs, don't they? Some people do stick it in the notes to say that the videos or the music used in it's unofficial, or it's used from such and such an artist, and
right.
but a lot of people don't, so that there's no credit towards any original source at all. It's just there.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I think there is a flag system, but I'm not sure how well they kind of keep up with it.
I think it's automatic for some cases. Sometimes it's random YouTube bots that pick up a copyrighted material of some kind in the video, and they'll either give a warning to the user or they'll just put ads in that video automatically as a sign of, hey, this has copyrighted material, so we're going to make the most out of this one. And we'll also give you a warning for it.
Right.
And it's also something that the abridgers like to, it's a slippery line for even the abridgers, like the Team 4-Star with DBZ abridged and Little Kariba with Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged, where they tend to have disclaimers saying that this is being used and this is being used and clips from this episode are being used, and DBZ abridged starts every episode with a disclaimer saying that this is a non-profit parody and we don't own any of this material and please support the official release. But is that enough to free someone on YouTube from like copyright, issues?
No, because I think YouTube's torn their channels down multiple times and they just don't end up reposting. I don't know how that happens, but and it is a slippery slope. I mean, you're taking copyright material and you're changing the audio track of it, or you're digitally manipulating the mouth flaps to fit your audio. I mean, it's almost the same thing as, sampling. It's like, is that legit or is it stealing?
Yeah.
Right. I think it gets. Sorry.
We're going always here.
I think it gets overturned because Little Karibo keeps saying that they keep arguing or appealing the copyright claims with the YouTube bots, because it's never a company, it's never a user making the claims. It's just random YouTube bots picking, this has Toei Animation stuff on it, this has TV Tokyo stuff on it.
Oh, okay.
And then they overturn it. But with the new copyright claim system, if a video gets caught with a copyright claim on it, Little Karibo said they can only do it once, and then they can't appeal it anymore. So now their channels are in more danger than they used to be, because there's still that 3-strike system on YouTube. And if you can't appeal copyright claims, even if the copyright claim is legit, in terms of appealing, even if your appeal is legit, if you've argued it once before and it gets caught again, it can't be argued again. And there's still the 3-strike system. So now he has to make multiple accounts to make sure the episodes stay up. And his episodes have gotten overturned again and again and again in the past, but now he can't do that as a result of the new system.
I mean, I guess you could say in part it's, they should technically be buying a license from the guys who they're ripping the material from. But then obviously when you buy a license, you kind of get restricted as to what you can do with it. So they probably wouldn't be able to do the parody stuff with a bought license, because the licensor wouldn't let them manipulate their content.
Yeah, and this is the internet age. It's I think it's kind of funny that and the Team 4-Star guys, Little Karibo, they're tremendously talented. They're hysterical. But I mean, again, they can't profit. They can make merchandise, that kind of skirt around the copyright issue, but they're not allowed to profit off a parody.
No.
But they can get out there, and their autograph lines are as big or bigger than any of the voice talent or studios representing the actual original content. It's like, what's more popular, DBZ or DBZ abridged? Well, abridged. Same with Yu-Gi-Oh. The parodies are, which are extremely popular fan dubs in the end, and but they have an audience. This is the way of the future. Before, you had to fight your way to the top to get someone to pay attention to you to get a screenplay sold, or become an actor to try to get on a pilot, to get it shot, to get it shown on TV, blah blah blah. But now, turn on your webcam or do an AMV, and suddenly you have a loyal audience of people, and some people, depending on the content, can monetize that on the number of hits. I think it's pretty interesting.
Do you have any favorite YouTube channels?
I subscribe to the Nerdist, because I like Ain't It Cool? I like Harry Knowles' thing, because I've been a fan of his website for years, big movie buff. I don't necessarily check out YouTube stuff or a particular YouTube channel necessarily. I'm following all the memes and everything that people first on Reddit and Twitter and Facebook and reposting that stuff. But
I'm always so far behind in terms of the meme stuff anyway. I'm like, when did this start?
Well, if it's made it on Twitter and Facebook, then boom.
Yeah. If all of a sudden it's like retweeted 4,000 times, it's like, oh.
It has a shelf life of like a day or two, and then it becomes woefully hated. And
there you go. Actually, you said shelf life. That actually triggered another question or discussion. Some other voice actors are Yuri Lowenthal, I believe Travis Willingham, and I forget who else is doing it. They're using Kickstarter to sort of fund their own project. Do you see that as something catching on in the future? Other actors just getting together
yes.
and going around the studio? Oh, okay.
It's great for projects, and I wonder if this would actually work, if anime fans would crowdsource the licensing of a show. I wonder. Like if a studio, even if Funimation actually ever reached out and said, you guys want the license to this show, then you got to put your money where your mouth is. You want us to craft these really awesome exclusives. We're going to give you an incentive to buy our product. We'll give you a cool behind the scenes. We're going to put tons of bloopers, this, that, and the other. Then, pledge this certain amount. Then you're guaranteed a copy, and you're going to get these cool extras.
Wow. And therefore you've paid before it's even coming to fruition.
Right. Yeah. It's appealing to an established fan base, and I wonder how the Japanese studios would react to that.
Because I kind of guess when it's just put in someone's face, and they then have the option to just just take it as they will, i.e. download it for torrent it or whatever for free. But when you've got something which is not yet done, and it's a future project which you can donate into beforehand, that kind of generates the money from the fan base beforehand.
Yeah, it's for something with already an established fan base. Again, it's easy. Like Shelf Life, which is a hysterical series about action figures. It's live action, so Yuri and his wife Tara and Travis and everybody is just playing these action figures, and they've built an audience and all that. So they build the audience first, and then they say, okay, well now we want to crowdsource, and they've made a lot of money and under their I think it's Indiegogo.
Okay, right.
I think.
Yeah.
But same thing, people pledge amounts and you get incentives for it, whether they make a limited edition figure of their characters or you get your name on their credits or whatnot. It's a great model, I think.
Right. It would be a cool thing to see fans actually put money into the anime that they want to see, because you've had I think 2-3 months ago, Tim Schafer made a Kickstarter program for an upcoming project of his own for video games. And that got $1 million pretty much within that week for license. And he only needed about a fourth that amount. And he got $1 million out of game license just to fund his next project, since he's an indie developer. And for fans of anime, it would be interesting for an anime company to go, all right, you want to see us license this anime. You want to see us license Gundam Age, for instance. You want to see us license that? Pledge this amount of money. Help us reach this goal. Depending on the amount of money you pledge, you receive this incentive, and we'll go from there. Let's see how loyal our fan base really is.
Yeah, totally.
Well, one thing for me, where it's obviously really picking up at the moment, sometimes it now could be quite daunting because there's so many projects on the go. You kind of want to put into, I know you can just donate any kind of amount, but more often than not, you see the tiers that you want to achieve, i.e., pay $30, you get get the DVD or whatever. Sometimes it can be a bit daunting with how many projects are actually on the go at one time. Yep. Do you ever think that has that kind of thing? There's ever too much on there?
Yeah, there's the downside of something becoming popular is the threat of there being a glut. And I think the animation side from Japan has warned, it's like, we're going to sacrifice quality for quantity's sake. And, because the fans want new shows, then suddenly you're seeing clones of better shows. So there's more junk to wade through.
Yeah.
And it's harder and harder for one show to stand out necessarily anymore. Kind of like the YouTube argument that it's like, okay, it's great that everyone can get content out there instantly, but how do you stand out all that noise? You got to filter through and somehow penetrate to say, hey, watch this. No, watch my channel. No, watch my channel.
Which for YouTube tends to be controversy.
Yeah. And even if you're a starting musician and you're trying to get your music out there, how are you going to stand out? Because everyone can instantly upload their MP3s and get their music out there, and they're on iTunes. But how do you know what to try? How do you know what to sample?
Right. And then eventually you get like the one diamond in the rough, like in terms of music, like you mentioned with Tayson Day, whose YouTube channel just blew up after Chocolate Rain hit YouTube.
Yeah.
And then you also get like the other ones, like like a few thousand viewers here, a few thousand viewers, and then you find this one person who has millions of viewers out of just experimenting with what he can do to reach other people.
Right. Totally.
Right.
I know, especially in hip hop culture, you're seeing a lot of these indie rappers just get on YouTube and they're getting signed off of that. Do you see that happening in the voice acting world, where like you have the abridgers? They're basically putting their auditions out there. Do you see them actually getting picked up by like an agent or a talent scout saying, hey, these guys are good, maybe we can put them on some actual funded work?
That's an interesting thing. I mean, you can argue, they say, well, Justin Bieber was discovered on YouTube. That led to things. But, and in the professional world of voiceover, so far, you can't just, come in saying, hey, I did fan dubs and they have X number of hits and expect anyone to be impressed, actually. But it's kind of weird. It's like they expect that there's a certain criteria. It's like they want you to have acting classes and training and work on professional projects and this, that, and the other. But I think the more and more as time goes on, as we shift to a total internet-based society for everything, we already are that, but I mean, the way the content is distributed and everything, I think companies are going to pay attention to who's making money. Because look at that. I mean, what did that annoying orange got a show?
Yeah,
yes, it did.
Somehow.
Cartoon Network was doing so well. We had Adventure Time, we had regular show, and I was like, okay.
Chowder.
Yeah.
And now, why do they call it Cartoon Network?
Well, hold on. That actually brings up an interesting question. We said before, you get watered down products in terms of editing what they are and are not allowed to show. But recently, with things like Adventure Time, regular show, Chowder, even the new Avatar that came on Nickelodeon, Legend of Korra, you're seeing people get away with a lot more. Do you think that would shift over into things not made in America? Maybe anime getting restricted less, the way we see our own domestic cartoons getting less restricted?
I honestly don't know where it would go from here. With online, you don't have restrictions. You may have a warning saying, oh, this isn't intended for such and such audience, but anyone can click a link. Anyone can enter a date of birth and watch extremely mature content and be 12 years old, like, ha ha ha, boobs. But what can you do?
Right.
I mean, that's a parent's job to step in, of course, at that point. But, you have plenty of uncensored content online, and I think that's the way to go. Just kind of like, Howard Stern left terrestrial radio and it was the best movie ever made. He can say whatever he wants, and he's got an audience that are willing to pay a monthly fee for satellite radio, even in the day of internet.
Right. But I think mostly in terms of television releases, like for anyone who's seen Legend of Korra really got a little, darker toward
a little
the
darker.
tail.
No
Okay.
spoilers. I haven't seen it yet. I mean, I've watched the first 4, and I think it's a great show.
Okay.
I just haven't been able to finish it yet.
All right. So we'll just leave it at that. That with in terms of the content, Legend of Korra gets pretty dark in terms of what happens, what's implied,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. Do you think in terms of television, will there be less restrictions compared to like in the 90s where the Spider-Man cartoon of the 90s that everyone loves, Fox Kids told the animators not to have Spider-Man punch anybody.
Yeah.
Compare that to nowadays, you think there's a room for less and less and less restrictions in terms of anime?
I think there are. I mean, you see how bad DBZ was edited, and then you see what they'll allow on Bleach or Full Metal Alchemist. I mean, there's still some trims here and there, but it's become more and more permissive of things. I remember when TV shows would allow, a bare ass on TV, on network television was a big deal, or they let certain profanity words just fly. And now it's just not a bigger deal. Ask an older generation, ask your grandparents what was allowed on TV or whatnot,
yeah.
and they'll.
Well, I mean, over here we had stuff like Monty Python when that was all on TV. That was quite a controversial show for the time, especially. Grandparents kind of didn't get it, whereas parents of my parents and stuff kind of did. So that was, I think that was kind of a letting go of some of the restriction on the TV content that was kicking off over here.
Yeah, I'm hoping that people like in Australia, there's a country that's still pretty tight on censorship, and all the anime fans are complaining about that. But again, I'm assuming that the uncut versions are available on DVD. But because it's an imported product, the prices are through the roof, of course.
I can't even say for sure because not even certain games are allowed in Australia in terms of violence and content, like Mortal Kombat. What was that?
They've just, I think they've just come to a new, stuck in a new law where they do allow for an 18 rating in Australia, because they didn't have that before, and that was kind of what was restricting video game content not being allowed in, because they didn't have this 18 rating, restricting kids from buying the product.
Right, and that resulted in Mortal Kombat not ever seeing a release in Australia.
Yeah.
So it's hard to see in terms of their censorship. It's hard to say what is allowed, what isn't allowed in terms of video if the gaming rules apply to their video content ratings. Back to what you were saying in terms of voice acting being competitive, but also trying to get your voices out there. You have a Skype voiceover session. Do you want to take the moment to kind of introduce listeners to that or plug that in case anyone might be interested?
Sure. Yeah. Through the years, I've done like little acting workshops at cons where we bring volunteers up from the audience, and I'll direct them through like a mock audition. And I thought about, it's like, okay, well, we live in this day and age where Skype can connect anyone around the world for free. What if there's people that can never get to a con? Maybe someone that wants to get a professional opinion about their voice acting ability. So I decided, okay, I'm going to aim this directly at beginners or people who are curious. What is it like to have an audition? What is it like to maybe some people have never seen a script before and they want to see how it's formatted and how you break it down and what the expectations are in the professional world. So I now offer sessions through Skype, and basically it's an hour, and I provide scripts to you during that session. So it's kind of a trial by fire sort of thing, just much like a professional audition or session is, where you don't give the material to study, days in advance or whatever. You look at the material, make an acting decision, commit to it, and then the director will give you feedback and maybe, tweak your performance. You do a second take, maybe even a third take, and then move on. So it's a chance to get directed, as it were, in a mock audition or a mock session. I have script samples for character and commercial. Some video game stuff. We could do some fight sounds, some power up yells, some attacks, damage, death screams. It's like, well, how do you sound like when you're set on fire? Now, how do you sound like when you're decapitated? Now, how do you sound like when you're impaled? And it's like it's a chance to have fun, of course, but also learn. It's like, okay, this is a little more difficult than I first thought, but I wanted to put out there that I'm demonstrating the process. I can teach the process, and I can lend my professional ear and give you an honest opinion about what your strengths are as an actor as you're starting out, and what you need to work on, and what are the faux pas in the studio, or what things shouldn't be on your demo, and how important that we stress acting in the word voice acting, not voice.
Right.
So I never go out there and say, hey, I'm going to turn you into a voice actor. I can't get you into the industry. I can't, you spend an hour with me on Skype and then suddenly you're a voice actor. That I'm not saying that at all. That doesn't happen. That is a very long, laborious process that's very trying on your patience and your sanity and your pocketbook. You have to invest in the craft. You have to take classes, workshops. You have to network, and this all takes a long amount of time. So this isn't some quick in to the industry. But if you've ever said to yourself, well, all my friends and family like my voice acting, well, maybe I should get a professional opinion. I'm not going to sugarcoat it just because, I charge. It's like, oh, yeah, give me your money. Oh, you sound great, kid. Thanks. And then bye. Not like that.
It's kind of like with music as well. When you have all those audition music shows and everything else, some of those guys just sound awful, yet their parents and friends have told them, you can sing, you can sing really well.
And I've had people take my Skype sessions that sound very polished, and they've got a lot of raw talent, and that's great. But again, I'm not going to recommend them to all my industry contacts and get them work. I mean, because it's just not that simple. You can't. I mean, Steve Bloom referred me to studios, and it ended up getting me work, but I had my own resume, I had my own demo, and it wasn't just someone opening a door saying, hey, you should hire this guy. So it's never that simple.
Plus, also you put them through to your studios, and they could end up trying to snatch in some of those jobs that you go for.
Well, the voiceover community is very supportive, though. There's probably 1,000 or a couple thousand here, but the talent pool on games is probably smaller than that, and the talent pool for anime is even smaller than that. So we know, if we're not good for a role, we're going to recommend somebody that is. And I believe in paying it forward. People helped me and kind of helped get my demo in the hands of agents or casting people, and that led to great things. So, once people have taken the classes and invested in creating a professional demo, not just recorded at home on their Logitech mic and threw in a bunch of here's my Vegeta impression, Yeah.
Yeah. How many Dragon Ball Z impressions do you get?
Not too many, but I get people saying, all right, I'm going to use my Johnny Angvash voice. It's like, no. You got to bring you to the performance. This is about how are you going to stand out amongst everybody else trying out? Right. I have Bleach audition character scripts. So, the first thing I tell people is like, don't think about what you've heard on the dub. If you even have seen Bleach. Don't sit there and, okay, you're going to read for Rukia. Well, I have to sound like Michelle Ruff. Like, no. You need to sound how your interpretation of the character. And then I'm going to tell you what works and then what doesn't work. And obviously, I'm going to encourage people to practice, read out loud, all that stuff, and save their money because, of course, it is an investment. You want to be a doctor, you got to go to medical school. You want to be an actor, you got to take classes and seminars and train and get experience. Now, granted, I came from radio, but this is a different climate now. I'm not going to say, hey, you should become a DJ. Everyone does podcasts nowadays. So, which is bad for the business model of terrestrial radio, but great from a consumer standpoint because you have the power of radio in your hands. Here we are doing a podcast about anime, and it's heard by everyone around the world. 10 years ago wouldn't be the case.
Yeah.
Right. 10 years ago, you needed an actual station and someone to license it and an actual, contract saying, hey, you're going to be on our radio station for this so-and-so amount of years.
Yeah, and something, this niche would probably be buried on Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. and no one would listen. But now people listen to it whenever they want. They download it, they listen to it on their phone, or streaming on their TVs and whatnot. It's a cool thing. It's a great time to want to broadcast and create content. But you also have to do what's necessary to help stand out. And in acting world, that's training and honing your craft.
Right.
So if people are interested in the whole Skype thing, I've got more details. I go into great exhausting detail about what the sessions offer and what they don't offer. It's very important. I don't ever try to sell myself as some sort of snake oil salesman going, yes, I will teach you acting and you will know. No, I'm not. But I do have 12 years of experience in the industry. I've worked, commercials. I've worked games, anime, cartoons now, and I think it's important for someone who's starting out to get that perspective. And if they want details, they can go to my website, KyleHebert.com. It looks like Hebert, just spell Hebert. I've got a big ad right on the right side as you come to the main page, and that can tell you all about the Skype sessions. And
we'll try and stick a link on the
cool. Thank you.
Pop up the podcast. Yeah.
Right.
Awesome stuff. And yeah, anybody can reach me 24 hours a day. Send me, Kyle at KyleHebert.com. Pretty easy to get. Facebook.com/KyleHebertVO. You can follow me on Twitter, Twitter.com/KyleHebert. So I'm pretty much the most interactive voice actor out there.
Do you have a preferred medium? Do you prefer to do anime or games, or is it just all kind of the same?
Well, it's not that it's the same. I think each one have their own little things that make them unique. But my favorite kind of work that I've always wanted to do, and I've gotten to do in small bits, is the cartoon stuff. I love being with the whole cast, even though the animation's not done, and it could take years before it finally ends up on the final product. That to me is the most fun, just getting to watch other actors work, interact with them, and everything. But I love it all. I love a chance to get behind the mic and do what comes pretty easily and naturally for me. And luckily, people like what I do, and I'm very committed and passionate about it. And it was the right path for me. Just because people want to be a voice actor doesn't mean it's going to happen, because it's all risk and there's no guarantee of reward. But I do encourage people to at least try, because you may wonder, you may let 10 years go by going, well, I always kind of wanted to try that. And you always wonder what if. It's like, well, if you at least try it and it doesn't work out, then you've learned something. You've still gotten away. You picked some sort of thing that said, okay, maybe I'm not cut out for this, but I wanted to try it, and I think it's better than regret.
Now you've got there's been the announcement of Wreck-It Ralph.
And
you get to play that. You get to play the lovely character Ryu. And I did see your post about how Capcom have asked you to pronounce how they've asked you to pronounce things. you put out it's pronounced Ryu instead of Ryu.
Hadouken, not Hadouken.
And Hadouken, yeah.
Yeah, it's for whatever reason these pronunciation mistakes have gone on for years. Like even way back with the original Street Fighter movie with Raul Julia as Bison, it was pronounced Ryu, and it even to this day it bugs me when I hear that. Like I'm like, in how many different medium is it pronounced Ryu?
Yeah, and when I got hired to be on Street Fighter, they're the ones paying me. If they say it's pronounced peanut butter jelly, I'll say peanut butter jelly. Like, hey guys, this is how they created this content. This is how this is their character. They say it's pronounced this way. Just so you know.
Right.
This is his name.
Yeah, but it was a fantastic, surreal experience. That I saw the trailer for Wreck-It Ralph, and I immediately saw Zangief and on there, and it's like, oh man, I wonder if they'll ever call any of the other Street Fighter characters, maybe. And one of the heads of the studio, Jonathan Klein of New Generation Pictures, where we did the dub for Street Fighter 4, he ended up calling his contacts within Disney and saying, hey, that's not the Zangief voice actor. If you want the actual actors from the game, I've got them right here. So I think they must have listened, because they ended up calling me and Ruben Langdon to come in for a really quick little scene. That's just a couple of lines. It's not that big, but enough that Disney thought it was warranting a press release. It's like, hey, gamers, guess what? There's cameos from Sonic and Ryu and Ken and
No, I thought it was just a spoof when I saw that video.
Yeah, it was pretty surreal. I went in. I mean, I live in Burbank. I live down the street from Disney, so I just went down the street and walked into their animation building, and I getting directed on this major feature film. But the cast did their stuff a long time ago, so it was just me and the director. But the directors worked on Futurama and The Simpsons. So if anything, I've made a great industry contact.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is like a major achievement unlocked for me. I've wanted to be on a Disney movie since I was a kid, and it's a line or two, and yes, they could honestly cut it, and it's not going to affect the movie at all. But if they bothered putting a press release out, hopefully that bodes well for the fact that it'll stay in.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, even if it's or if they may or may not draft you back in to do another couple of lines, you never know, do you?
Yeah, like I went in for a scene, and I thought, okay, well, that's it. And then they ended up calling me for a second session going, hey, the scene it ran too long, so we rewrote it. And it's like, oh, okay. I got a second session fee for showing up. That was nice. It's like, it's good for you, so maybe we'll just keep on rewriting the scenes. Like, okay. Got to make money for 2 lines. Okay. First world problems. But, yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, they got Gerald C. Rivers, who does Bison in Street Fighter and Street Fighter Cross Tekken, to do some voice work for Wreck-It Ralph as well. So it seems like that little contact between the dub director for Street Fighter 4 and the Wreck-It Ralph director went in the favor of them getting the Street Fighter actual actors into the movie.
And that's gonna speak well to the audience if they go and they say they play the English version of these games, and they hear like, oh, hey, that's cool, that's Roger Craig Smith, there's Sonic, that's awesome. Right. Or hey, that's Ryu, that's sweet. It's not going to sound different. Theoretically they could change their mind if they wanted to, but I mean, again, they put the press release out saying, hey, we got the original game voices, so I feel fairly confident that that's what they're marketing, and that's what they're going to do. I honestly can't wait to see the movie regardless. I think it looked hysterical, and I'm on board whether I'm in it or not.
Well, especially after mentioning about the Futurama thing.
Yeah.
One of my favorite animated shows is
if you make a good impression of the director of any project, hopefully they'll remember you and at least call you in to audition on future stuff. And that's all you can really ask for in the acting business. You're not it's a numbers game. I try out for 100 things. I might make 1 or 2. And I got to keep telling myself, it's not personal. It's not personal. I don't suck. It's just, there's so many people and there's only X number of roles.
Yeah.
Right.
So you do the audition, and then you move on to the next audition. You don't sit there and ponder what if, and I hope they hire me. Chances are they're not going to hire you, but you just keep that in.
If you did that, you'd probably end up just spiraling into some depression, wouldn't you?
You'd just go crazy. You'd go crazy.
Yeah.
When I got to try out for a cartoon, and it's like, oh, it's a quick turnaround. It's going to record on Wednesday. And then Wednesday came and went. So obviously I wasn't hired. I was a little bummed about it, but okay, brush it off, move on to the next one.
Right. It just becomes, it's another day. Just go along.
Yeah. I mean, my life can change in the span of a phone call. I can get a call saying, "Oh, hey, we need you to come back in for Wreck-It Ralph. They wrote another scene," or I could hear nothing for weeks. Or I'll hear, "Hey, we're working on a game. We want you to try out for it." Or my inbox will suddenly have, boom, 10 auditions to do.
Right. Or, hey, we're working on the sequel for this role. We want you to reprise your character, or something like that.
Yeah, I like that because I don't have to try out for it then.
Right. It's just an instant. Okay, you're Ryu. Here's the booth.
Yeah. Get in the booth. Do it now.
Speaking back to you saying about, or you mentioning of roles that that saying that you don't you can't take it personally, that you don't suck, and which is true because you're a fantastic voice actor. A friend of mine wanted me to personally thank you for your contribution in video games and anime, especially for your roles as Sosuke Aizen in Bleach and Thermidor in Armored Core. So I wanted to pass that message along from him to you. His name's Dana. That he thanks you for your voice roles and your acts as Aizen and Thermidor.
Well, Dana, thank you. I feel very, very blessed that I've gotten to be a part of these projects and franchises through the years, and I'm totally 100% committed to my craft, and I'm going to keep on striving and auditioning, and hopefully you'll hear me on lots more projects down the line that are maybe bigger. Who knows? We'll see. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Awesome. Do you have any upcoming roles aside from Wreck-It Ralph that you can talk to us about, or non-disclosure?
Oh, non-disclosure. Yeah, I can say that generically, I do have 3 non-playable characters on Guild Wars 2 coming up at the end of August.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
What am I on that I can actually talk about? Gosh. Stuff, games. I'm on 2 new anime shows that haven't been announced yet, but hopefully I can announce at least one of them soon.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm looking at the list here because I keep a list. I open my smartphone and make a little note. It's like, okay, what's the name of this project? What's the character I'm recording? Because after a while, I forget, and then suddenly I'm at a convention signing autographs. It's like, I'm in this. Oh, this came out? I guess so. Woo! Let's see. I'll show up. I think you'll probably hear me in Tiger and Bunny. There's a Persona 4 anime that I come back as Mitsuo. So that's coming on down.
Wow. I did not know we were getting that stateside. Wow.
Yeah, I think Atlas said something about it, but I didn't hear any official confirmation.
The latest blasts I've been getting from Atlas are all about the Golden and Arena. Well, maybe those are the ones that I'm paying attention to because I know those are day one buys for me. So. Yeah.
Cool.
And Arena Atlas is pretty much saying, "Don't post spoilers."
I did see that. I did see that on their main message board. They're like, "Okay, if you've imported it or seen it, don't tell anyone."
Right. They have a spoiler lockdown on Persona 4 Arena. They don't even want YouTube videos of the game story mode up.
Wow.
So.
Okay. Recently there was 2 anime conventions I think of note. There was Anime Next and Anime Expo.
Mm-hmm.
Could you talk to us about your experiences there?
Well, for me, it's pretty much like at any convention. I get to it's very surreal. I go there and I get the rock star treatment. People stand in line to meet me and say hello and shake hands, take pictures, and I love doing that. I love not just doing the panels and the autograph sessions, but I love walking around the dealer hall and just chilling with people. And I'll take a big group of friends or fans. It's like, hey, let's go to Denny's. Woo! It's just, I love being social. Have a great time, and no matter big or small, I've been to cons of all sizes. The ones as small as 100 people, and then something the size of Expo, where you have like 30,000-40,000 or whatever. Of course, the smaller cons are more intimate, so there's more downtime. You can actually have a conversation with people and not just do like an assembly line. But The big ones are, of course, cool too, because you see a greater variety of merchandise available in the exhibit hall, and you might get a wider variety of guests too. I've gotten to meet some Japanese voice actors through the years. I saw I'm terrible with names, but the guy who voiced Vegeta was at this year's expo. In years past, I've met the Japanese voice actor for Ichigo. Not Aizen, but close enough. And he actually came up to me. It's like, oh, it's very nice to meet you. Like, oh, but this is cool. Yay.
Wow.
Voice actor for Kamina, the voice actor through the years I met at Animazement, where they have a lot of Japanese guests in North Carolina each year. I met the voice of Trunks and voice of Frieza. Oh, man, it's just so cool. It's like, obviously, without them, I wouldn't have these roles here.
Right. And I remember
I bet that's kind of strange when it's maybe if it's been if it's been a show that's you've worked you've done voices with that actor God knows how long ago. Well, they've not been in the same room.
And these actors do what we do here. They do dubs of English work into Japanese. So
right.
And the idol worship almost of voice actors is pretty big in Japan, bigger than even here, even though it continues to grow and English dubs are more popular. Voice actors are a big draw at American cons, but it's like they are the Brad Pitts and the Angelina Jolies of the voice world in Japan.
Right. Like a voice actor in Japan, like Norio Wakamoto, is very well known and renowned for his villain roles. Even Cell in the Japanese original language version of Dragon Ball Z. And here, the equivalent to someone like that is like a Stephen Bloom, or you yourself in, amongst fans. And it's a different atmosphere, but at the same time, it's all the same, and it's more mutual between the Japanese voice actors who do the original work and dub the English work into Japanese, and the American voice actors who also do original work, like Bloom with Amon in Legend of Korra, and you yourself as Super Skrull in the Avengers cartoon, and also dubbing the Japanese work into English.
Right.
It's a lot of the same ground retread, except just different process.
Yeah, totally. I feel so flattered and honored that I've gotten to pursue my dream that I've had since childhood, was to get voices on animation. And, growing up in the 70s, I never thought that, video games would have voice work in it, because I had an Atari 2600. And now these games are movies that occasionally you play,
Right.
A couple of button taps during one of the cutscenes, and that's about it.
Yeah, and I go to conventions and fans are coming up, dude, you were my childhood. It's like, people who grew up watching Toonami and hearing next time on Dragon Ball Z. Yeah, and I'm doing their voicemails and
Oh man. Is there any specific memory that you can take that you remember being like a big moment for your voice acting career?
Oh, sure. When Chris Sabat called me and said, "Hey, we're going to hire you," you couldn't peel me off the ceiling. And I got off the phone and tried to call my parents and tried to call my friends, and nobody was answering. I'm like, oh my god, Funimation's hiring me on Dragon Ball Z. Again,
the biggest news, and you can't express it to anyone.
No, but I was pacing around my apartment, and it just like it's surreal. The first time my episodes aired on Cartoon Network, I was just like giddy. And now through the years, I think it's even more fun to have my voice as a playable character on a game. It's like, ooh, I can play with myself, but I'm.
Did you ever find it weird hearing your own voice back when? Because I guess when you're on the radio, you're just putting it out there as opposed to hearing everything back.
Yeah.
So when you watched, maybe first caught watching the Dragon Ball Z, and you hear your voice in there, did it feel weird?
Yeah. It was strange, but in the best way possible. Again, because this is something that I've wanted so badly since being a kid, and have it come real. I mean, again, the Wreck-It Ralph thing came out of nowhere. It's like, oh, wait a minute, suddenly I get to be on a major animated movie that's coming out theatrically. Like, holy crap, this is wild, and hopefully that will lead to bigger, better things. Fingers crossed.
Let's hope so.
Right.
Thank you.
All right. So, off of that, was there anything that let's going back to the Wreck-It Ralph discussion in terms of how the dub director for Street Fighter 4 called the director for Wreck-It Ralph to actually get the voice actors. This goes to a question I wanted to ask you in regards to voice acting. Billy West, as you may not know, is very outspoken against celebrities in voice acting, feeling that they don't know how to work on microphones, majority of them, you know, and the pay that they get to do a voice actor's work is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask your views on celebrities actually doing a voice actor's work.
Stunt casting is a very annoying trend for us people that do this and for a living. It's like, come on camera people, do your on camera stuff. Don't sit there and try and just impress your kids and have your agent make a quick call and suddenly you get a gig where you walk in the booth and make $1 million. It's like, all right, Chris Rock, you're not really acting, you're playing yourself. Good on you for the success in your career, sir, but come on, let us do what we do. And Hollywood has this annoying trend thinking that people will only go see animated movies if they have a certain cast list. They got to have these celebrities. We need a name. That may be true for live action, but when you're making a movie that appeals to kids and families, I don't think the kids care one way or another who's voicing it. And, it's not about feeding our egos. It's just that something that we love to do, and we feel that we can do it. And, of course, and especially in this economy, like, guys, why are you throwing millions of dollars of your budget when you could be using that for your animation and taking a very minuscule amount and helping us pay our bills, Yeah.
Right.
So it's very frustrating. I know Billy West and Wendy Lee have been hired by big studios to coach the celebrities to sound like them. That's like,
serious?
Yeah, we're paying you for your time. What a slap in the face, huh?
Yeah. That's almost insulting.
Almost.
It's extreme.
Okay, yeah, it is.
Sound like me. I say, all right, I'll make a nice paycheck from the studio, but it's almost like hush money. It's like, here, do this and then go away and disappear into the ether. But there's a lot of thankless jobs out there. There's little moments that you don't even know are filled in by voice actors. Pat Fraley did some of the efforts of Buzz Lightyear on Toy Story, and he made bank. Coming in for Disney, because sometimes those celebrities are just above coming in and doing post work where they have to maybe dub a scene or two, or they have to re-record their dialogue. They'll just call in the voice actors who can come in and voice match the celebs. I did a voice match for Seth Rogen for the Spiderwick Chronicles video game. Like, sometimes the celebrities don't do the video games because maybe they do cost too much, or maybe they don't want to do it. It's like, all right, take your scraps. Thank you. But something like Call of Duty, of course, Gary Oldman, fantastic actor. He's nowhere listed on the artwork of Modern Warfare, and he was on there, and the Sam Worthington, who was on Avatar, it's like they get all these celebs to come in and play these major roles, and the gamers don't care. No. They just want to play the game.
I mean, it's kind of like when you're a kid and you watch these animated series. You don't sit there and read all the credits and who's played who. It's only when you kind of grow up and you look as to who's actually starred in some of your favorite shows.
Yeah.
Unless that's your thing. If you're really interested, then most people get up and leave during the credits. But I like staying, and I like watching even who did like the Loop Group stuff, who can all the bit part voices, additional voices, people that just fill in the background of movies and TV. I like seeing their names because a lot of times they're my colleagues and my friends. It's like, hey, cool, good on you.
Hey, right. I didn't know you were in that.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's a wacky, volatile world that changes in the blink of an eye. But it's one that I'm very honored and proud to be a part of.
Right. It's pretty shameful to hear about, voice actors being told, okay, you have to train this celebrity to sound like you. Well, why not just hire the voice actor?
Oh, because they're not a name, they're not famous. If we have a fandom within a niche fandom, we're pretty anonymous people. We can go to the grocery store and not get recognized, but and a lot of the voice actors like that anonymity. And even some of the on-screen people kind of envy that. It's like, I remember when I wasn't chased by TMZ people. Yeah.
Right.
And I could go to the Starbucks and just get something without being hounded for like, hey, what'd you think about this, bro? But I envy their paychecks.
Yeah, that's always something to look at and looking. Wish I could have that.
It's like some people have, they're two very different things. Do you want to be a star or do you want to be an actor? Do you want to be famous or do you want to do something that just truly fills your soul with riches? Sometimes you can make good money. Typically, you just do enough to get by if you work consistently enough. A lot of us have day jobs. At the moment, I do not. I'm living on voice acting, and that's a great feeling, but that could change. You got to weather the storm where, there could be weeks or months that the phone doesn't ring as much. And what do? You got to budget your money and live frugally sometimes. We're not all driving Rolls Royces and living in mansions and all that.
Like some people seem to think.
40 years. Frank Welker, Billy West, the Futurama cast, yeah, they're doing extremely well. But
right.
Most of us, not so much, especially not in anime.
Which I assume is because anime is an imported product that results in less money going into the dubbing and more going into the license acquiring.
Yep, exactly. And but have a bigger budget, so games pay hundreds more per session. So our eyebrows perk up a little more.
It's kind of much less marketed, and anime is it's so niche, and they don't do so much on the promotion as they would on Western animated series and things like that.
But I mean, there's even a glut of not just anime, but games too. You got clones of better titles, and then people don't know what to buy, and then they'll spend millions of dollars developing, for as long as it takes to make an animated movie, maybe 3 or 4 years, and the game comes out, and then nobody buys it.
Yeah.
Because it just got lost in the clutter of other games.
Yeah.
Right. It just gets thrown in with no name recognition, no advertisement, and then it's like, okay, we'll just see if this does well. Oh, it doesn't. Oh well. Right. So, on that note, in regards to the celebrities in voice acting, do you think, like, in terms of them doing the voice matching, do you find it more of a good thing or a bad thing for aspiring voice actors that there's a market for that type of thing? Like, James Arnold Taylor is a great voice actor for, he's done Ratchet and Ratchet and Clank. He's done Tidus in Final Fantasy X, but he also voice matches Ewan McGregor in the Episode 3 game as Obi-Wan Kenobi, and he sounds perfectly like Obi-Wan.
Yeah, and he's been Obi-Wan on the Clone Wars series, but he's also been like a promo voice for Fox, and he's right. You've heard him on tons of commercials and not known it because why would you? It's a commercial, but you hear Steve Bloom as the voice of 7-Eleven for many years.
I do remember that.
I remember that one too.
Yeah, there's all sorts of exciting opportunities, I think, and the chance to act with your voice it's golden. Again, it's so much fun, and it's a great challenge no matter what it is. If it's like, oh, I'm going to be on hold message, or I'm going to narrate a corporate training video, or I'm going to do an audio book, or I'm going to do a flash game, or I'm going to do whatever it is. There's so many different applications for it nowadays.
All right. It's a very good point on that front. On that note, do you want to, get back to doing what you were doing so we can let you go off on that?
Yeah, I think so. I think we've gone for a while.
Yeah. We've gone for about an hour and a half on this one.
It wasn't intentional.
But
No, that's okay.
But we do greatly appreciate you taking time out of your day to hang out with us, talk with us, really giving us a lot of insight into what you do.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity. And again, if people want to drop me a line, it's kyle@kylehebert.com. You can visit the website. You can learn about my Skype sessions. You can read my latest projects that I'm pimping, my convention appearances. Follow me on Twitter and Facebook. The links for all that are on my website as well.
And watch your Kyle TV.
Oh yes, Kyle TV. My, not safe for work stream late at night.
See, for me in the UK, I literally get into work, and before I start working, I stick on my Twitter feed, and then I see a tweet from you pop up. Now going live on Kyle TV. Yep. Shit, I can't have sound in the office. I just see him sitting there at his computer.
Yep, that's what it is. I just call it Kyle TV. People go, "I love your show." It's like, it's not a show, it's a stream. It's just literally a webcam and me hanging out with people and talking about stuff. And sometimes it gets dirty.
Sometimes, Kyle.
Yeah, sometimes.
Just drinking wine from the bottle.
Yeah. I mean, so here, read Craigslist in character ads. Have Bill Cosby read this Men for Women ad. And okay, now have Eisen read this Men for Men ad. And
oh man, I love the Kyle TV streams.
Well, cool. Thank you.
Right.
I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, but but whatever. Again, it's not about, hey, I'm promoting something, I'm a voice actor. It's really, again, the social aspect, because I love social media and I love technology and the fact that we can beam into people's homes for free and be content ourselves.
Yeah.
Right. I'm a regular on the Kyle TV streams as Winged Regent, and those streams are always hilarious.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Winged Regent. Good time.
Good times. Okay. On that note, we'd like to bid you farewell. Once again, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us on our podcast, and we greatly appreciate everything you've done for gaming, for anime, and for coming onto our show to give us some insight in terms of what you do and what goes into it exactly.
Thank you very, very much. I appreciate that.
All right. So thank you for joining us on the show, and everyone listening, thank you for taking the time to listen to the show. And all of us here at We Are Gamers, we like to say once again thank you and farewell. This has been Lawrence and Justin.
Right. Take care, everybody.
And Rident.
It is.
And our special guest, Kyle Hebert.
Peace out, yo.
Perfect.